Welcome back to the Reece podcast. Today we have got CrossFit Games athlete and the first UK male to ever go to the games. One of my good friends and was once my coach, Steven Fawcett. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for coming. To be honest, you're a massive inspiration to me when I first started, obviously in the sport of CrossFit, and the more time that we got to know each other, the more knowledge that I gained from you, and that was something that I will appreciate for the rest of the time that I compete or the rest of the time that I also coach. So I wanted to start the podcast today because all my other podcasts have been very, very deep. Yeah. And I wanted to start just a little bit more surface level with this one first of all. And I wanted to ask you, what is your favourite ever movement in CrossFit? And I think you already know, but I'd like to see if it's changed from what it was.
Okay, have you got a prediction there of what you think it is?
I think it's strict handstand push-ups.
Yeah, you're correct.
Shows I know you pretty well.
Up, maybe, and maybe this next one, split jerk. Basically, we would do anything that's going up above my head. Strict handstand push-up, handstand walk, maybe in there. Anything inverted or overhead.
What movement do you not like?
Deadlifts.
Same as me. Our little bodies don't like hinging, do they?
Nah, they don't. We got them short legs, haven't we?
So, okay, moving on from that then. What would be your ideal workout and why?
You know, I think the most ideal workout was the one that I did in 2015 regionals event 6. Event 6. It was the 5 rounds for time, 25 cal row, 16 chest to bar pull-ups, 9 strict deficit handstand push-ups to like a 4 or 5 inch deficit it was, and it was like a 10-minute workout. So like the time domain, the 2 gymnastics movements there. And I'd worked loads on my rowing through the career because I knew that obviously with the build I needed to put loads of work in so that I could keep up to a level. But it was also a part of me was if I kept up to a level and then rowing got combined with something that I'm strong at, those two are like opposites. Usually have the really big, tall people with the rowing who then struggle with the gymnastics side of it. But I thought if I can get my rowing to this good level and then it gets combined, and then finally it happened in 2015, and it was a workout that secured me the qualification for games that year, and it was just like the perfect situation where it was the first event of the last day and just kind of relieved a lot of pressure. So yeah, I'd go with that one.
So how much then of that time was a defining moment in terms of obviously your career, but also obviously leading to where you are now? Yeah. How much do you think that was a defining moment in terms of how it's obviously affected the course of your life and also the course of your career within sport of coaching, but also and obviously the competitive side?
Yeah, massive because it opens doors. You know, if I think about the doors that opened after that, you know, the type of other athletes that you're starting to train with, the other coaches that you get contact with, you know, there's the status of being a CrossFit Games athlete. As a coach, people respect that you've been there and kind of done it and you've had that experience. And then even going into other jobs now with HPO, you know, it still holds some weight when I'm speaking to, you know, the likes of Matt Fraser and Matt O'Keefe. Like, they know me, first of all, because I've been at that level with them. So it just helps with, like, opportunities down the line in the career. And it's probably a hard thing to grasp when you're in it. And when I was in it, I didn't think that that's what it would lead me to. I just knew that this is something I wanted to achieve. And then I didn't really know what my plan was after that year. It was just all in for that year. But looking back, yeah, it was a massive defining moment. Opens the doors, opens the opportunities, and you learn so much. It's not just the opportunity that gets you from other people, but you learn so much from going through that whole process. And those things you carry with you for the rest of your life and whatever you decide to put your time and energy to, because you can revert back to what got you success in like a different
It's the attributes that it builds, isn't it? I think it's been the same for me. Like, the attributes and understanding I got from the drive that I have for training, if you go and put that into any other end of hour, you can achieve anything.
Exactly.
You really can. Isn't that such a massive like important thing to learn though?
Huge.
Because most people don't have that drive. No. They also, I believe, people struggle massively with consistency. To be good at CrossFit, you have to be one consistent motherfucker.
Yeah, and you have to be prepared to fail. Like, you have to know you're gonna fail pretty much a lot of the time in CrossFit, but you've still got to come back and go again. And I think that was the biggest thing that competing taught me, is that, you know, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna try this new thing, and if I get knocked back or I can't do it very well, then you find a way to do it, and you apply that to everything else. And Ben Massey was always someone that comes to my mind of. We always spoke about this. He's obviously a games athlete, was in the team, and look what he's gone on to do. It's that same mindset that he's had to apply into training. They've done it to business.
If anyone doesn't know who Ben is, he owns Rad Global.
Yeah, exactly. Founder now, and whatever valuation they are, but they're absolutely they're smashing it, aren't they, in the CrossFit and functional fitness scene. So it's that approach with it, it's that mindset, it's that applying what we knew we needed to apply as an athlete and putting that into the rest of your career.
Would you say then that's one of your probably biggest things to give advice to someone would be that training is for failing, and what we fail at within obviously the sport, we need to take the lessons from it and use that as our fuel to then come back even stronger? Because I think in life, especially business, you're going to fail so many times. You're going to have bad months, you're going to have good months. It's about being able to stay motivated during them bad times and taking the lesson from what we learned to then be able to obviously apply that to be able to become better and then continue obviously pushing forward and having that consistency.
Yeah. I think, you have to be obviously calculated with it. You can't just go and I'm just going to try this and fail, and I'm just going to try again and fail. Like, you have to be calculated of when you're going to attempt to go after something, and you're not trying to do that every single time, but it's more how you deal with failure and then how you come back from it, which is the main thing. I think one of the early podcasts that I've done, one of the first ones was talking about when I played football when I was under 12s. I joined just this regular under 12s team. It wasn't an academy or anything like that. It's just a regular amateur team. We'd lose most weeks. Under 14s lose most weeks. Under 16s lose most weeks. And I think it got me over those 6 years pretty okay with, not okay with losing. It's not the right, because I'm not accepting to lose, but okay with how I dealt with that and how it drove me on to be more motivated, because I got to 16, 17 and I was more motivated than all of the kids that used to play in teams that were being successful and winning every game. They were just if they lost a game at that point or they failed at something, the whole world would come crashing down. Whereas for me, it was just another learning experience to keep going, and that you just carry that through.
We see that quite a lot with a lot of athletes, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
You have make or breakers, and then sometimes a lot of them, when they have that failure, it breaks them, and they never come back from it, really. So then, moving a little bit more forwards, then what would you say now then, at this time in your life, is your motivation for work and training? Obviously, back then, we wanted to win, we were all in, but what's the motivation now for work and training?
So the motivation for work is in a similar way of what my motivation was for training in my career as an athlete. Is I want to achieve things. I've got certain goals that I want to achieve within HWPO and other kind of other business that I'm involved in, that I want to tick them off. I want to do that. I'll set myself goals of I want to launch this new product or whatever it is. And the drive towards just getting that achievement for me is that same drive as getting the achievement of qualifying for the games in 2015. So there's that element to it. There's also element, I've now got family, 2 kids, we've got responsibilities, and you've got to look at financially supporting the family for the rest of my life, and then setting my kids up for those lives. So there's also that element to working as well, and having the family financially stable. And training wise, it's now just more of training is a supplement to be able to achieve those work things. And I can't achieve those work things if I don't train, because I've tried that. I've gone through multiple times where I've just thought, you know what, my work and my career now is more important than my training. Training's just getting sacked off, and my work just goes downhill, and then my mental health goes downhill. And it's just you're in a position where it's actually, this training is what keeps the cogs turning.
It's a non-negotiable.
It is. And that helps me achieve the work things, and then they both play off each other. So training wise now, a couple of Hyroxes beginning of this year, got a marathon in April, half Ironman in June, and then a Olympic triathlon later in the year. So just things on the calendar that are getting me out there, getting me going, because I need that little bit of an event, something that keeps you accountable.
It's a bit of an anchor for you. It's a bit of an anchor for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always got a performance element to my training. I'm not that interested in I'm going to train so I can get bigger or more ripped. I want to know what running splits I can hold, or what watts on the bike I can push for an hour. Those are the things that get me ticking. So I'm just leaning into them, and that helps. They both help each other in the work and the training.
We're much more motivated by performance goals when you've obviously competed in CrossFit. So do you miss competing?
There's elements of it I miss. There's elements of the lifestyle where it's the sole focus. You wake up 7 o'clock, you're to the gym, and the only thing you're thinking about is that rowing session, that 30-minute EMOM, and then the only thing I'm thinking about then is refueling to go again from a 2-hour weightlifting session. And it's, when you're in it, you feel like sometimes it's quite overwhelming. But when I look back at it now with the rest of stuff that I've got going on in life, it's like that was such a simple, is a hard but a simple life, that I miss that sometimes, of just having that one thing. And you're selfish, aren't you? You have to be selfish. It's like, I'm making decisions just based off what I want to do. And there's sometimes that element that I struggle to let go of, and I've struggled to let go of over the last, 4 or 5 years. I don't miss the constant fatigue, and I think that's just a big thing. It's just like, I came back into training like 2 or 3 years ago and had another little stint there, and I soon got a reminder about 6 months into the competitive season. This is why I dialed it down a little bit. So I don't miss that, and I don't have the itch to try and like go back and do anything again. I've definitely scratched that itch multiple times.
Would you say then, do you miss the person that you was when you were competing, or do you prefer the person that you are now?
I prefer the person I am now. It was more just like, I do miss a bit of that just relentless pursuit on that one goal.
The singular focus.
Yeah. And like what actually I do miss is that, you would have witnessed it a few times when you came down, just the training environment that we had at JST in that gym, when like we would random Friday afternoon and suddenly like 16 people have turned up and nothing's really been coordinated about like there's a big session going down. People are just like, get that there's a session going down at about 12 o'clock. 16 people turn up and it turns into this huge training session for a few hours.
Slinging it
and it's like there was just this group of people. You had people like Johnny Waring, who was just like unreal at certain things, and then you got Jack, who's unreal at certain things, and everyone had something that they were unreal at. So whatever workout you were going to do, there was someone in there that's probably going to be either beat you or be very close to beating you, and that was the same for any type of training you were doing. And I've never seen that environment replicated and done it anywhere else.
It's a massive motivation for me
bit,
with our gym, to be honest. I mean, look, we haven't got the level of athlete that you at the JST, but the motivation that I have to build that type of environment where people come in, everyone trains together, the vibes are high, everyone's improving and getting better than themselves, and everyone is motivating each other to be at that same level. We have got it to an extent in here, but my motivation came from your old JST. Like, oh my God, I remember when I was younger, like, I had massive like FOMO, wanted to be there involved with you, and I think that was obviously a motivation to why I got in touch with you, and then obviously I started to filter down a little bit more. But yeah, you had it off.
It was you can't anyone that was part of it will just like smile and nod and just appreciate like what it was, but you can't get across to people who weren't there what it was like. And I honestly think that's why, we had multiple teams to regionals, why we won the strength in depth 4 times in a row. There was multiple games athlete came out of that group. People have gone on to do like amazing things. Weightlifting British champions, English champions. There's rowing champions in there as well. It's crazy what that environment did to that group of people, and the direction
so
that they went
contagious.
off. That they went off and achieved is unreal.
It really is contagious, and that's why everyone speaks about it. You are a product of your environment, and when you come from an environment like that and you're involved in that type of vibe and energy, it rubs off on you, and then you start to become like the people that you're around, and that's so important, especially now for young people. For example, you get in with the wrong group, you become like them types of people. And I've been a product of that myself when I was a little bit younger, getting in with the wrong crowds, being around the wrong people, and then you start realising you're speaking like them, you're acting like them.
Yeah, you're thinking like them.
And you're doing that in a positive environment where we're around athletes and people who are relentless in their pursuit. You then also become like that. It's the saying, isn't it, that if you want the flower to bloom, don't change the flower, change the environment.
Yeah, okay.
It's as simple as that, really. Okay, then, so staying on with your career in the sport, do you have any regrets?
So, yeah, the one thing I think about, so mid games 2015, 2016 was a tough year for me, and it was a tough year because when things started getting busy from 2015, like I said, the opportunities opened after going to the games. You've got XYZ competition wants you to go and compete at their competition because they want to get some status from games, athletes there, and then there's the online stuff with Jace to Compete starts really getting momentum, and it's like, right, well, there's an opportunity there, and that's actually going to start funding my lifestyle to carry on competing, because sponsors were there and thereabouts, but they weren't bringing in much cash to make this like a full-time thing. So I had to have some revenue coming in from somewhere to allow me to stay. And then it was balancing that, and I think maybe I lent too much into driving that side of the business. And I'm thinking selfishly here as just like my own personal individual CrossFit career. I think I put more into that side of things and coaching too early, because I felt like I had to go with that opportunity. And I think that had a big effect on my training through that year, and ultimately the performance that I ended up getting injured at Regionals 2016. And I think it's just because I was in this under-recovered state throughout the year, because I was constantly trying to chase. I was pretty burnt out after the 2015 games season, just because I just threw everything at it. And I never got that full recovery to be able to be in a good position again the next year. And I think that was because, I was starting to juggle a lot of things. But part of me, that also led to a lot of great things that I've got right now. So it's not so much a regret, but it was just think, if I did that a little bit different, what would that have led to? Would that have led to like me going maybe 2, 3, 4 times individually, and then it's a slightly different, maybe going on a slightly different path then. But
you say it's bittersweet then? You say it's bittersweet?
I'm very happy with how everything went. Like, I wouldn't change anything. So I wouldn't, if you'd asked me to go back and change it now, I wouldn't change a single thing. But just a little part of me thinks, just what if? So I'm not like bitter about it, but just like curious about what would have happened if I just focused. I was just a bit more selfish in 2016 and just focused on myself and my own career. But I've got to buy a house. You've got to do stuff. You've got to earn money at some point.
Of course you have.
And I'd gone through a few years of like earning minimal to get to the games, and I felt at that time that that was my opportunity to then start, bringing the finances in to make this a success. So that's the only thing, and I don't think I've got anything else that I maybe regret or would have done different. Maybe I'd approached some workouts and done something that's slightly different, but maybe not dropped a wheelbarrow, things like that. But it comes up in every podcast, so I may as well say it myself.
100%. Okay, then. So looking at that, that's probably one of your worst moments.
Yeah, but I was also be like, I'm at the games. So I was just like, whatever. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't that beaten up about it as people maybe think. It's just like, well,
could have been Noah Olsen in that event.
Yeah, well, he did it, but he came second to last, and I came last. So he was just a little bit faster at putting him back in the wheelbarrow, I think. So,
okay then, what would you say that your favourite moment from your competitive career was? Yeah, qualifying for the games 2015. I don't know if you remember, I made it a bit interesting with that very last event. Regionals missed that last clean of the ladder a couple of times, so I went from being like pretty certain I was going to, oh shit, I could have messed this up. But just like waiting on the floor, they kept us out on the floor, and I was training a lot with Phil Escuff at the time. He was my training partner, and then it flashed up on the screen like the top 5, and it was top 5 that qualified, and my name was there in 3rd, and then Phil's was there in 5th, and he was always in and around the qualifying, and then he managed to have a great event, and it nudged him up. Can't remember by how many points. So being right next, like we were this far away from each other when we both found out we qualified for the game, so that was an unreal feeling, because it's probably all we both spoke about for the previous 2 or 3 years since training together, and then we achieved it together at the exact same time. So something like that feeling's just so overwhelming, and it's only things that will come by once or twice in your life where you get a feeling like that. So when you think about that feel now, do you ever think about chasing it in another direction? Yeah, do you know what I got? Best piece of advice I got from me when retiring was from Brooks Leach, actually, Katrin's now husband, fiance. Not sure if they got married yet. He said, "Don't try and replace it. Don't try and replace that feeling you got as an athlete." And it's like when he told me that, he only told me that a couple of years ago. I was like, he was at NHL ice hockey professional for years. One of the top players, and he said, just don't try and replace it. Just use your skills, like we were saying before, and apply it somewhere else, and just be content and be happy with the career that you had, and just know that and just put that to bed there. And I think since I've had that outlook on it,
it's definitely helped.
I think that's amazing advice, and I think that's going to be big advice for a lot of athletes now.
Yeah.
People who are coming towards the end of their career in any sport.
Yeah.
We all have this same, what are we going to do afterwards, or how are we going to chase this feeling? Everything's fleeting.
Yeah.
Moments in life, feelings in life, it's all fleeting. Everything's impermanent, everything's changing, and I think again you have to come to terms with that. Some feelings are only supposed to last for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But as we start to get older, I think we don't really chase massive amount of pleasure. We chase contentment.
Yeah.
Two completely separate parts of obviously the human emotional system.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like coaching now. Obviously JST competes probably, I would argue, the most famous CrossFit programming company in the UK. But we know that you've now transitioned over to HWPO.
Yeah.
How was that transition, and how was it stepping away from your baby and stepping away from something you'd worked so hard to create, and going in a new direction?
Yeah, it was a tough call. It was tough decisions. It's been 3 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was one of those things, because it's like I said, it was my baby. It's what I'd created. It was me. It was mine, and it was running how I had created everything. It had the people in that I'd brought in and got to that point. But again, I think when I'd got approached by O'Keefe and Fraser about wanting to join HWPO, when I would think about, do I just carry on and do my own thing and just stick there and see how far I can take that? But it was that I had that kind of what if thought again. It's like, if I say no to this, like, I'll constantly think, well, what opportunities could that have led to? Just like new avenues of career that it could push me down, which it is at the moment. So it was just like I just had to go for it, I feel like, and experience it. And it was, there's plenty of tears, don't get me wrong, about leaving JST behind, but I think for my own personal development and what I could get exposed to, and the people and the learning opportunities, it was just something that, after I thought about it for a few weeks, it became a no-brainer that I had to dive into that and experience it. And
it comes back to that environment thing again,
yeah.
like we spoke about before. You'll put yourself in an environment with someone like Matt O'Keefe and obviously Matt Fraser, who's the best ever athlete within our sport. Them opportunities don't come around often, and I don't think anybody would blame you in that same situation. I mean, I would jump up on it as well, because that environment and them contacts, that can lead to so many other things. It really can.
It is that, and it's just like what I've learned and what I know now about different things in business, different things in technology, different things in coaching. Would I have got that experience and knowledge if I just continued to run this one thing that was my own? I don't know, but I feel like the people that I've been exposed to and learned from has helped me massively develop as a person. So those are the reasons that I wanted to do it. And yeah, it's going well now.
So everyone knows who Matt Fraser is.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone knew that Matt could be quite very laser focused as a competitor, which sometimes he maybe came across in the wrong way. But I want to understand what it's like to work with somebody like him on the outside. Has he been able to do the same thing as we spoke about before, and put all of that effort and drive that he had from training into business?
Yeah, he's for the first few years, me joining there, like very, very involved in how he wanted like products developed, or like what the ethos was around the products, and that's something that I'd spent a lot of time with him understanding. Fortunately for me, it was easy to understand, because that's how I saw it as well. That's how I saw things. So that was quite a reassuring moment there, that my approach to training was not too dissimilar to Matt's during his career. And yeah, so then it's the programs and the products that we develop, and everyone kind of has that that culture that's created of that approach to how to get to a certain goal is the main thing. So it's not so much that he has a huge input in like what goes into every program, but it's in terms of the business, to get to this goal that we want to achieve. This is how we need to view the approach to it.
Can you simplify what the view is?
In terms of training or business?
In terms of both? Or is it too complicated? If there was like a phrase that you would use to describe it, what would it be?
I'm not sure how I could describe it with a phrase, but it is that laser focus, and it's not letting anything that could potentially like take you off in different avenues because that seems like a fun opportunity. It's sticking the course, and it sounds really
keeping
boring,
the
but
main thing.
If you remember in training, it's like, well, my main thing is the games. Oh, but there's this little pairs comp over here, or there's this little other event I could do, or this fancy training session. It's no, you keep your eyes fixed on what you're working towards. And there's quite a lot of noise, in the industry, and you see, like, there's a lot of media noise from different media outlets there, and they like this, they got opinion, this, that, and the other, and you could go and you could rise to them, but it's no, we just stick to the course. And I think that kind of, it seems again boring and just like monofunctional, but it's like that's what gets you to the point, rather than like going this way and taking little detours around. So I think that's what I'd try and explain it from Matt's involvement and the culture that is created within H2PO is that, we set what we're going to achieve, and then we layer in how we're going to get there, and then we just one by one, and O'Keefe helps a lot with then creating the systems to get to that point, and that ultimately is how he achieved what he achieved in his career as an athlete as well.
Makes a lot of sense. So I want to look now a little bit more at the CrossFit scene. Things have changed so much, haven't they, in the past couple of years? I don't know from what your point of view, but it's been quite sad to see from my point of view. But I feel like the past couple of years it is starting to get, again, a little bit more traction, and obviously these new competitions coming about is making it much more of a better financial position for the athletes, which is very, very good. But there's lots of arguments now, obviously within our space, about what's right and what's wrong and what direction the sport should go in. What's your thoughts?
I think, it struggled from 2018, I think, just because of the change, the consistency. I think that's the main thing is, because the changes happen every year, it's hard for companies, brands, with commercial agreements, athletes, coaches, to commit to what's going down because there's so much uncertainty. And, if that's changed from 2018-19 through until this point, and in the last couple of years, I felt like we've got to a point where there's some kind of structure changed again this season, but it's I feel like it's finding its place, which I hope then will continue with only minimal adjustments and only small adjustments, which are only going to keep improving it year on year from this point. But I think that consistency needs to happen for brands to stay connected, for then money to flow through the industry, for athletes to then do this as a full-time job, for coaches to then be able to do this as a full-time job, and then that drives the sport, and then there's lots of stories to tell in the media and make it more of a spectator, something that you can follow. Because back in 2014, 15, 13, whatever, you had athletes that you idolised and you could follow, and you would follow what they were doing. And I think now, I'm not sure if you could say that, or maybe you haven't been able to say that from 2018 until maybe a couple of years ago. And it all comes down to just being consistency from the top for me, because then that allows the kind of infrastructure of everything that needs to fall in place for it to be a success. And I think that's what the WFP being launched has helped create. There's athletes have now got, if they get a pro card, they've now got some consistency, and the games can still be there, but it can be that kind of, that big, more like a one-time big event, which could be very, financially rewarding. It can be very good for like their personal brand as an athlete, for the appearance there. But I think it's really hard for athletes to just go for that when it's so uncertain. If they can secure, 3 high-level competitions a year, a monthly salary to compete in those, then they've got that. I think it's the perfect scenario. It just becomes then balancing so many competitions.
Like, let's not sugarcoat it. CrossFit has been very unfair to their athletes right throughout the whole of the game. The games has been for the whole time the games has been around. There's been no consistency at all, which makes it very unfair if you're a professional athlete and your whole career revolves around this one event. And every year you're getting told, "Oh, we've got semis this year." "Oh no, we haven't got semis." So you don't know when to peak. I believe it's been very, very unfair, and I think that's where they went wrong massively. they need to take a step back sometimes and try and understand that this is much bigger than just a brand and a company. This is, you've also got so many thousands of fans, but also hundreds of athletes who has made this their life, and that's where it's been really wrong. I agree with you. WFP is amazing, and this is why I don't really understand the likes of Hillafit and the people on Instagram who are slagging it off, because this is now, they clearly have not come from working class backgrounds or have clearly had to struggle financially in their life to understand what it's like to be in that place and try and work towards something, or work towards being a pro athlete within this sport, but not have any finances, not have the funds to be able to do it. That's a massive, massive stress upon an athlete's back. Having something now like WFP allows athletes to be able to actually have consistency with, oh my God, if I go and get a pro card, I can now go full time as an athlete, especially in Europe.
Yeah, it is. And I think put yourself in those athlete shoes, and look, you can make the argument that, let's say like a Dallin, a friend of yours, and Jason, now that if it was just the games, they can still create a great salary. They're still going to get paid a good amount to make it their career. But there's so many athletes that are between like 10th and 20th who are unbelievable athletes that don't get that financial reward from just games. They also aren't in the public eye enough yet because they've not broken into that to get the sponsorship, to get the endorsements. Then they're having to be like pretty relentless with the social media to try and like get to that point. And then it's taking them away from what they need when we talk about that laser focus towards the goal. They're having to focus nearly just as much on social media and who they are as a brand to be an interesting, exciting person, which for some people it's just not their personality. It's not what they want to be, what they want to be like. To be able to achieve that goal, it's like, well, as WFP just comes in there, it's going to reward who you are as an athlete, your ability, and it's going to reward you with consistent income. And then you can be like, right, I've got this now. We've got Jen and Ella both got pro card for this next season. They've got, whatever $1,000, dollars that brings in, secured for the year. That then to be able to focus on those three competitions. The sponsor's then happy because they've got the exposure at these big level competitions against top athletes with coverage and everything else that comes with it. And then they can layer on top their focus towards the games. And it's like it all just fits together, and I just don't know if there's a level of wanting to protect CrossFit Games and thinking that it's going to lose its status by being replaced by WFP, but I don't ever think it'll be replaced. I think WFP will become, that consistent organisation that's going to be there, which is going to allow for the games to be held even higher because it's going to allow for consistent flow of high-level athletes.
It's a bit like darts. Darts have got so many different events throughout the year. They have all the majors, and they're all run by completely different companies. Yeah. I don't see why it would be a problem for that to be the case also with CrossFit. So that brings me then on to IF3.
That was my next thing I was going to say. It's like that's what the IF3 is also trying to achieve, what WFP is, but they're trying to do it in a little bit more of a recognised by International Olympic Sports Committee and funding. So in England and in the UK, getting it funded as a recognised sport so that it can then create the funds to pay the athletes and the coaches and everything else down the system, which WFP's doing. WFP's done it through private equity funding. IF3 and the British Functional Fitness are trying to do it through gaining funding through governments. So it's the same approach, and it's like it's the same approach as triathlon and Ironman. Triathlon is a recognised sport which has a governing body, and Ironman is triathlon. It's swim, bike, run, but it's not. It's a commercial business. It's run separate in the same way that mixed martial arts, MMA, and UFC are different. It's the same thing, but UFC is the big commercial entity that's driving a huge amount of money and the eyes on it, and then they're both propping each other up. So I think they're both WFP on one side and IF3 and all the rest of the governing bodies across the different nations are trying to achieve some consistency so that games can stay up at the top and the whole industry can benefit from it. The coaches, the brands, the athletes.
And the grassroots.
The spectators, the kids. And I think together people just need to get in a room and talk about that and realise that, actually, we do this together. And we don't have to come and have a meeting every week. But if we just pay a bit of respect to each other, they can all go through the roof.
It's that saying, isn't it? You want to go fast, go
Go
alone.
alone,
Go
yeah,
far, go
far, go
together. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, look, what is the stumbling block for IF3? I know someone spoke to me and said that in the UK, there's not an MP to sign off this as a sport, which makes no sense to me when in 22 other countries now, functional fitness is a recognised sport.
Yeah, not sure. I don't have too much involvement in it. You know, at one point I was president of the British Functional Fitness Federation. Stepped away from that in COVID just because there's too much other stuff going on. But I think it needs. It feels like it's just trying to battle with all these other competitions, and it's maybe not getting that much buy into because it is doing things properly and it is doing things the way they should, and those can sometimes come across as not very exciting. And you know, people are getting drawn into like these exciting events that are on, you know, in big fancy arenas, and there's flashing lights, and like the marketing that goes into it is like really skilled and enticing. And maybe because they are on more of a voluntary basis and there isn't much funding in BF3, like they've not got all these really skilled content creators and Phil Roy's behind the scene putting together great graphics and big marketing campaigns to drive the encouragement, like the involvement into the qualifiers for nationals or wanting to go to worlds. And I think it needs to stay consistent, and then it just needs like that little bit of an improvement in the marketing. But it can only have more marketing when there's more consistency, and then people can understand what that's going to lead to.
Do you think it just needs time?
It just needs time. It needs time, and it does need people just to give it a chance.
I mean, look, I was there this year, and it was an amazing experience. Yeah. Like having 45 of the UK athletes together, all wearing the Team UK shirt, and it was made a massive deal of. And from my eyes, I could definitely 100% see a future in it. And I think as well, like, we have to not be shy that there's not many kids coming through. There's not many teens coming through anymore. And something like the IF3, which makes it a professional sport, allows for there to actually be specific things that kids can do, or a specific pathway that they can see to be able to build towards. At least with football, you know, if you get trials from an academy, you play for an academy, and you know what the pathway is. Whereas in our sport, we don't really know what the pathway is because there's so many different variables, different competitions. I think that gives it consistency. And I think what we do is an amazing sport. It's probably arguably the most difficult sport in the world because of the suffering and pain that we have to put ourselves through. At least in MMA, you're fighting with someone's punching you in the face. You're punching yourself in your face every single day. Yeah. And that requires a certain type of person to be able to do that. So while we're on the subject of young athletes, it's something I want to speak about. And I come through this pathway, and we've seen a lot in our sport over the past couple of years of young athletes hitting burnout. Massively and burnout. You've probably been a part of the HWPO team. We know Mal. You've got Anika Greener. You've got Emma Carey. Who else? I'm missing out quite a few more.
I mean, the list can go on, isn't it?
Yeah, high-profile athletes
that you don't know about.
Yeah, high-profile athletes who compete at the highest level, but then now don't even do the sport anymore. What can we do to protect them?
I think it starts from, you could probably say that all those names that you've mentioned there, the reasons could all be completely different, but they've reached the same end decision where they're going to step away from the sport. How they got there, we don't know if everyone exactly the same, but for me it does come down to the same thing I was saying before about if CrossFit's consistent as a company at the top, what that allows for is consistency all the way down the chain, and that it can even go as far as there being coaches that want to be in the sport and helping. And because I think that's a large thing is enough coaches who are there to help and support, because helping those athletes is at a time and it's a demanding thing to require from people. Can't just like do that on the side of the jobs to the level it needs to, with the level of the demands of the sport and all like the public eye of what is you can get to when you're at the top, when those names you said then were exposed to. That requires a huge support systems for that one person and for those group of people all the way down, and we don't have. I don't think there is those support systems. There is definitely the psychologists that exist, and there's high level enough coaches that understand like what athletes go through, but the sport isn't supporting of that level of person, so they're going to go into other sports. They're not going to choose to spend, 30 hours of their week going either on the side voluntary or for a couple £100 a month. Like, they're going to go into the mainstream sports, which are going to allow them to create the income that they deserve from the skill set that they've got. So I think it is
resources.
Yeah, it's creating the support systems that that all athletes, not just the teens, need. And I think
do you think there's a correlation between high levels of cortisol and young athletes burning out within our sport because of the sheer amount of volume of training that we do?
Yeah, there's I think a big element of the teens is that they were allowed to, and yourself, you'd be allowed to compete at the CrossFit Games and call yourself a Games athlete because you're a Games athlete competing at the CrossFit Games. That connection of the status for a 14, 15, 16-year-old, like, they then just feel that that's who they are, that's all they are, and that's the only, like, they have to make that jump. They don't realise, and they soon come to realise of how big that jump is to make it into the adults CrossFit Games. So because for them to do that, it has to be like all encompassing, it has to be a huge thing, and I think they then miss a huge part of personal development. From what I understand, is what a lot of those names that you mentioned before has come from, is they miss this huge part of personal development because they've been on that relentless pursuit to achieve that one goal, and then they get to a point when they're an adult and there's a sudden realization of, like, I know there's a realization for me when I was 27 years old that I've been so concentrated on this one thing. I feel like I can't do, like, I don't know how to fill out, I don't know how to apply for a new passport, I don't know how to apply for the stuff that you should know as a 27-year-old. That's just a small example, but if you apply that to someone who's gone relentless from 14 years old and then it gets to 20 years old, there's a huge amount of...
It's an identity crisis.
Personal, identity, social skills that they're missing out on. I think that becomes a bit of a realisation point, and if they had that support system through that, which I know JST is doing very well with that junior and youth squad that they've got, is really drumming home that yes, you can train and go after this thing, but you want to do this from when you're 20 years old to 35 as well. So what's more important from when you're 20 years old is that you're developing these social skills. You're not fully going after this goal of getting to the CrossFit Games. You're developing all of the skills that will require you to have to then continue to do it when you're 20 plus and for the rest of your career, and go on to apply those skills, like we just said before, into your jobs and relationships and whatever else.
The youth camps are doing it really, really well.
They're smashing it. Yeah, they're doing great. Jack, Jamie, Pete, I know Phil Roy's been involved in them, and I've turned up to a few of them before, and you can just see that the kids are developing. So I would slightly disagree to when you say that the UK teens are, there's a big batch of them coming through, but I would be confident that they're coming through in the right way, where, like, they might not be breaking to be like top at the games, but when they get to 20 years old, so we're talking in anywhere between 2 and 5 years time, they carry on, and there should be a batch of high-level athletes who've got the right support
You've hit the
system.
nail on the head there. That's the answer, isn't it? The answer is we teach kids that we want to be the best athlete from ages 20 to 35, where they're going to make the biggest development. They're going to be able to get financially in a good position from doing it, and they're going to be able to make it a career and not doing it when they're 14, 15, 16,
Yeah,
17,
exactly.
like we did. I mean, look, from my point of view, Steve, Reece the athlete was my identity. And when I stepped away from it because it wasn't working out for me, it was one of the most difficult things I've ever been through in my life, because I hadn't explored any other parts of myself.
Yeah.
And I missed out on so many experiences. And people always ask me now, like, why did you stop? And one of the main reasons, obviously, apart from the issue with the glute, was because I hadn't experienced other areas of life. And then when I did experience other areas of life, I went absolutely off the rails, taking loads of drugs, partying loads, doing the opposite to what I'd done for the past 4 or 5 years, which is then unhealthy because that then can cause addictions, then that can cause you to go down wrong paths. If you have balance and you have that support system, which you've just spoke about then, it makes being able to understand that you are also a human first.
Yeah.
I work with Emma Hackett from Limitless. Yeah. She was amazing. She really was. She helped me a lot because she used to put it like this. You have different caps as a human being. You have the coach, you have the athlete, you have the human, you have the dad, you have the son, and then you have to change them caps and be present in whatever it is that you were doing that exact time. When you're an athlete, all we're thinking about is how that workout went in the gym. It's so draining, so difficult, and I feel like that for me was exhausting, and I'm guessing it's the same for most athletes now. It's absolutely exhausting. If you have them support systems to teach you these things, then we'd probably be able to have a completely different mindset and perspective on it, and then we mightn't have as much burnout because they learn how to regulate themselves, they learn how to have that balance, and I just don't think, especially when I started, we didn't really have that because we didn't maybe have the knowledge on how much impact it was having on the young kids. I always use that example of, I competed the games in 17 with 20 kids. There's
3 of them, is it? 4 of them?
There's probably 6 of us now who still do it. 4 of them at the top, Tudor, Jack, James and Dallin. The rest of them don't do CrossFit. I still do it, but nowhere near the level that I used to. None of these 15 kids do it. That shows there's a problem. It really does.
And I think, look, it's also to get to the top. So like to be one of these top athletes in the world, you do have to make it like pretty much the main priority. And that's fine. And I think as long as there's some support alongside that to help the athletes when they're going through maybe they have a great performance or like things, or they get an injury, or supporting them post competition when suddenly like they can relax, and then like you get the kind of post competition burnout and blues, like, and supporting them out of that process. I think that's a normal thing that happen in pursuing something that is so intense and demanding. But it's just important that can't happen at 14 years old, and you have to use the 14 to 20 era to set those foundations of different skills and different exposure to different areas in life to be able to then, if you still want to at 20 plus years old, pursue that as a career. And I think that's an important thing, is it's not saying that you can't go all in with it, because I think you have to a degree to achieve those big achievements. It's just making sure you do it at the right time and you have the support system and the skill set to be able to do that successfully without the detriment of whether it's your mental health or your physical health, through those years.
So, looking a little bit more now at your life, what you're doing now. Obviously, you're a dad to 2 kids.
Yep.
How has that changed as a person?
It's polar opposite from just like mind frame where it would have been 10, 11 years ago, where I wake up and I'm just thinking about what I've got to do. I'm waking up, I'm thinking, what do they need and what do I need to do for them and my wife and Jessie and Lainey, my son and daughter. So it's just that is the first thought and the first process. And then it's like, well, when can I fit in that bit of training for me to allow me to be able to be like present in those situations, like you say, and wear those caps. And it's crazy, but also like love it at the same time. Like it's nice to see the impacts that you're having on your kids when you're going out of your way to give them what they need and teach them the things they want to learn.
And also setting a good example, which you do amazingly.
Thanks. Thank you. You always hope that you are. Like I coach Jess's football team now. He's under 7s footy team, and just being that kind of like responsible adult of that group with another fella, and seeing those kids, not just my son. Like my son's gained like huge amounts of confidence from me being his coach in that team, but also seeing all of the other kids, and then seeing their parents also being really grateful of how you're developing them as kids is just like, it's really satisfying as a job. And it's probably, I would say, the coaching in that side of things and seeing the development and the confidence those kids are growing has been way more, and I've only done it for 6 months, way more satisfying than coaching any athletes had been to to the top of the game. So yeah, definitely enjoying it, because you kind of like you're a very responsible. You got a very responsible job in that position, because every word you say and every action you make can be massively influential, either in a good or bad way, to that kid. And that's something that very aware of, is that every single word, or how I react to a certain thing, how I speak to them, how I greet them, is massive for every single one of those kids.
They're very vulnerable at that age, and
Yeah.
they take in so much information, and subconsciously as well. I think that's why you look at academy football players, they get pushed so much by the dad.
That's crazy.
And when you get that's in any sport for that matter, but that constant stress and expectation of trying to please dad causes massive amounts of issues for them internally, which means most of them stop playing football when they're 16.
Yeah. I did a football tournament here in Liverpool over Christmas, and obviously football's massive in Liverpool.
Massive.
It's a religion, it's a way of life, and some of these kids are unreal. They're unreal. But I do listen to the language that's being used around them, and like how they're acted on, and the pressure that's being put on them. And if they do something wrong, what gets said, I'm like, oh, I don't know if some of those kids they'll get through it, they'll get to the top, they'll be the next Trent, Curtis Jones, whatever, they'll play for Liverpool. But it's like, how many of them won't? And that's the one thing that just kind of...
It's amazing that you have that awareness, though, to know that. Maybe your own experience, but also obviously being within our sport and being a coach, you realise how to develop an athlete, or how to comfort someone when they're not feeling great, and not pushing them too hard, because if you push them too hard, you push them away.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very common. So speaking about sport then, Liverpool, we have got some serious fucking athletes coming out of this from this city. Sorry, lots of fighters, boxers, MMA fighters, lots of footballers. Who's the most, from what you know, the biggest inspiration?
Who's my biggest inspiration?
Yeah.
Steven Gerrard. Yeah, without question. Just that, I think it was just more as a kid. Obviously, I can't remember my age when I was watching him when he was playing for Liverpool. But just like, I think his attitude, he was never like someone that was like loud, and he always say like he would do his leading with his actions and his leading on the pitch, and that kind of relates to that, because I was never really someone who wanted to talk a lot and be really loud myself. I was really do it through action. So I think that, without knowing this, looking back now, watching him and kind of idolising him, like shaped, I think, because I related to not feeling like I had to be like this really big commanding like presence in a room. You can still be like that quieter one, but still
the silent assassin.
Yeah, but still be a leader by being that person. So I think that from what I learned, and I love just watching back, even just how he talks now as an adult, and on the podcast that he's on and stuff, just like his approach. So yeah, definitely say.
You mentioned then about being a leader. That's something that you've done a lot of. Obviously, being president of IF3, JST, HWPO, JST as a gym. What advice would you give to any new leaders who are starting out? People who are opening their own businesses, people who are managing football teams, and people who are managing companies. What advice would you give to that person who's starting out?
Yeah, I think it's tough to give a piece of advice, but what I'll try and get across is that you need to kind of have a picture of what you want, what you're wanting to do, and how you're wanting to achieve that. And what I mean, that's quite broad, but what I mean by that is, for JST, the gym, for example, and let's say the competitive side of the gym, not the public side, is that I wanted myself to be a top-level athlete. I wanted other people to be a top-level athlete, so we could keep pushing each other. And how do you get to that point? And then it's just breaking down to like the actions and the behaviours that are required to get to that point, and then also always making sure that you're fully aware of what actions and behaviours are required to get to the next step, and sticking to those action behaviours rather than just kind of like looking at maybe what other people are doing or what other people are achieving, other businesses, and how they're getting there. Stick to what you're comfortable with your actions, behaviours, because sometimes, you could think that you want to set up you see a lot of people setting up a podcast, just using it as an example here, and that's help getting them successful, but that makes you feel really uncomfortable. It's just not what you want to be and the type of thing you want to be doing. Don't do it. Find the the passion and the drive and the stuff that you're really comfortable and confident and excites you, and then layer in the actions and behaviours that align with that, and then that'll take you on the path that you want it to go in, rather than trying to become come the same level of success, but by doing something that is not what you're about or what you truly feel strong about doing.
Would you maybe then say that is just about staying in your lane?
Staying in your lane, yeah, just staying there's obviously a level of getting yourself outside of your comfort zone and trying new things, and that's definitely been an area of my life that I've done, but also just being confident in yourself and what you believe is the right thing to do, and stay in your lane with that, and just kind of back your own belief, because I think you can get a lot of drive from just from internal motivation if you're deciding the direction that you want to go, whether that's how you want to approach something, how you want to structure a social media campaign, or how you want to set up a podcast, rather than being told or learning from someone else. You have way much more internal motivation and drive to achieve it, and I think that's how I've always got anywhere in any areas where I've been a leader, and I think people who I've been leading when in those positions have then been able to buy in to that more, because they can see that it's, they can see a pathway that it's on.
I think a lot of the answers as well come from within. I think you've got to know yourself well enough and know what it is that fills your cup up, and I think you can find most of them answers from within yourself. So before we finish up, we're just going to go back to CrossFit once more. And you've probably been asked this question quite a lot, but I want to see if it's changed over the past couple of years. Any advice to a young person starting out within the sport?
Yeah, he's just play some other sports. Play other sports first and foremost. Is we're saying young, teens area. He's saying so make sure you're doing other sports and you're doing other things. It doesn't mean that you can't really go into training. Just don't seclude yourself from other social situations, other sports that you can learn from. Whether let's say you currently play football or rugby, and CrossFit's becoming this thing that you're really enjoying. There's a lot of things that you can still take from football and rugby that you'll be able to apply into your CrossFit career, and just use them both to supplement each other and enjoy the fact that you and your body can do all these different disciplines of fitness, because that's what helps you become the best athlete you can be further down the line, like we mentioned before. Get yourself, dive into it, go head first into it. Just don't seclude yourself from the outside world, to be able to achieve something before you're 20 years old. Because
the fine balance.
Yeah, it is a fine balance, and just get help with it as well. I think no kid knows what to do. No kid knows. You just need to find the person that's going to support you and just give you that little bit of a guiding hand in the right direction when you're maybe feeling a bit lost, like everyone does. So I think get a support and a system around you is going to help that, but just don't seclude yourself from it all.
Last but not least, I've asked everyone who's come on the podcast the same thing.
Okay.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Oh gosh. Try to think what my wife would say. What Fran would say. I've learnt that I'm confident. Never used to think that I was that confident, but I've learnt that I'm confident within myself. So confident. Open-minded as one word with a hyphen. Open-minded to new things. Calm.
I'd definitely say calm.
Yeah. Good.
Mr. Fawcett, thank you for being episode 3. It's been great to talk to you, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy the listen. Thank you very much, everyone.
Cheers,
lad. Cheers, lad.